everyone, how are you? I hope you are safe and doing fine. It's Rosa here again. We are in the middle of the Laudato Si week. Hope you are still with us and learning from our different guests in the videos. To prepare this celebration, we have tried to invite people from different stages of life, yet with the same passion to help us be more aware of our role as Christian in our common home. I'm happy that today we can listen to the reflection from a young professional, a passionate and brave woman, Miss Raevene Morillo. I admire her dedication to what she desires for the good of the people and her humility to open for God's guidance. I believe whether we are in the Philippines or not, through her example and advocacy, we will all be empowered to be more involved on issues like social justice and human rights. Then, when we entrust everything under God's guidance, we call it mission.
Hello everyone, my name is Raevene Morillo, and it's a pleasure to be able to share with you my reflection on Laudato Si's view on our right to water. A short background. I'm very passionate about human rights. In fact, I have worked for anti-sex trafficking and anti-sexual abuse of children. And currently, I am working for Ideals Incorporated, which stands for Initiatives for Dialogue and Empowerment through Alternative Legal Services. I work there as a networking and advocacy officer. We currently work with communities for legal empowerment through education and advocacy raising. Throughout my human rights work, I've realized the importance of environmental protection and that neglecting it leads to a lack of sustainable and communal approaches for human development. This led me to my current chapter at the Loyola School of Theology, as I am currently taking up the Certificate in Integral Ecology program. I'm at LST because I realized human rights is inseparable from ecological justice, and that the ecological crisis is both a scientific and moral issue. An example of this connection was when I assisted a client who became a victim of human trafficking after she was left desperate by Super Typhoon Yolanda. As she was desperate to earn in order to help her family, she was deceived and transported from Leyte to Manila and was almost prostituted. Thankfully and miraculously, her mother, along with law enforcement, were able to save her on time. I would also like to give a short disclaimer. This video is a synthesis of my personal experiences and research, and does not necessarily reflect the views of the organizations I mentioned, namely Ideals Inc. and LST. The Philippines as an archipelago is a paradox in terms of access to water. Despite the abundance of salt water and fresh water, equitable access to water has been an unmet goal for decades. Interestingly, though, privatization of water is a mixed blessing. Prior to it, less than 70% of Metro Manila was able to access potable water. Also, non revenue water was very high. This is water that was lost either through leakages or theft. Next, intermittent supply was an issue as well. At times, water is only available within more or less 16 hours per day. Lastly, MWSS, the government body in charge of water operations, was debt-ridden, amounting to $900 million. And so government, being overwhelmed, decided to have water operations open for public-private partnerships. Hence comes the current concessionaires Manila Water and Maynilad, while MWSS has been relegated as a regulator over these private companies. So despite the challenges of higher water rates, access to water has increased to more than 90% for the areas covered by both Manila Water and Maynilad. Water loss through non-revenue water was also significantly reduced. Evidently, despite the achievement of greater or more efficient access to water, this is not equivalent to equitable access to water. This is obvious as the urban poor struggle with the lack of clean water necessary to effectively combat COVID 19. And so, this reality must be challenged. Pope Francis, through Laudato Si, aptly describes this issue with water as an educational and cultural issue. Why is that? Let's try to go through some examples. First, in terms of tap water quality. Despite the fact water is privatized and we actually pay for tap water, we do not consider it as drinkable or safe. I believe this is because we apply our current low standard of how we take care of our water resources. Because we know we do not invest in time or educational resources in order to learn about water and how to take care of it. If we were to regularly see filthy rivers everywhere in Metro Manila, it's not hard to understand how we associate tap water as dirty, especially as we do not directly know the processes behind it. In truth, our tap water actually meets international standards. As long as your connection is well maintained, tap water is drinkable. I actually drink tap water. Second thing, there are no tangible efforts, both from government and private sectors, to correct this misconception. This is because private companies do earn so much from this, as we prefer bottled water or even soft drinks over tap water. Next example on why this is a cultural and educational issue. How the government is so eager to build Kaliwa Dam by using the water crisis in Metro Manila as its excuse. This dam is to be funded by a Chinese loan worth 12.2 billion pesos, which could have us again relive the cycle of debt which brought about water privatization in the first place. To have this dam built is to compromise the lives of local agricultural workers and our indigenous brothers and sisters by robbing them of their right to ancestral domain, livelihood, medicine, and food, among others. And despite its goal to augment the water scarcity in Metro Manila, our country and future generations would have to suffer the environmental consequences of this action, particularly through the loss of forests, endangered plant and animal species, and contamination of water sources, and longer dry seasons, among other effects. Privatization, though with benefits, cannot be the final solution as the water crisis continues and as the gaps of privatization are being used to justify environmentally hazardous projects. Government also has to be held accountable in making sure that the solutions it would forward are humane and ecologically just. I encourage my fellow youths, ang mga kapwa kabataan ko, to continue to question how water is commodified and how we should not let convenience serve as the measuring stick of effectiveness. We may have greater access to water, but urban and rural poor communities remain neglected, while indigenous peoples are at risk of having their ancestral lands and culture destroyed. Though private public partnerships have proven to be beneficial, the temptation to put profit over lives and the environment is ever present. And that is where we are needed. That is where the youth are needed. We are needed to correct that and to serve as a check and balance mechanism. To counter this problem of ailing systems, we must pray and find that every viable solution for any social injustice entails an ecological component. In terms of water, there are so many alternatives we could study, incorporate into systems, and implement, such as the restoration and preservation of rainforests and watersheds, fixing leakages to prevent the millions of liters of water loss, and implementation of existing policies relating to water storage and conservation. We must pray, learn, advocate, and engage stakeholders, most especially vulnerable sectors, in every way we can in order to uphold the true Filipino culture of bayanihan, in order to care for our common home. Maraming salamat po.